Our brains are very lazy, and for good reason. If you think about all the impulses that you get in one day, it will be basically impossible for your brain to process all of that information. So for good reason, it employs a filtering mechanism to help you cope with everyday life. But that filtering mechanism is not perfect, and this can lead to a list of biases that are influencing your decision making and your thinking, and which could lead to falling into bad decisions. In this video, I'm going to show you what those biases are and tell you how you can avoid them and how you can avoid falling into a trap of those biases. A gentleman named Daniel Kahneman, a professor at Princeton University, has discovered that our minds have two operating systems, as he called them. The system one thinking is effortless, fast. That is the filtering that the brain is using to filter out everything that is not important. The system one thinking is working based on assumptions, patterns, previous data, and simplifications. But it's effortless, so we are using it for 98% of our thinking. System 2 thinking, however, is slow, it's conscious, systematic. That's the system that you are using when you're making conscious, difficult decisions, exploring difficult problems, and learning new skills. But using the System 1 approach, even if it's unconscious, can lead to certain distractions and distortions in the thinking, resulting in a list of biases. The first bias is the anchoring bias. That is the tendency to be emotionally attached to the first piece of information that is being heard. For example, if you know how much the house of your parents costs in their neighborhood, you would tend to assume that houses in other neighborhoods also cost the same because that's the default value that you heard. Or it is also used during negotiations when one of the parties throws in a number for a price, for example, and then every other price which is heard later, every counter offer, is considered in comparison to the original anchoring number. The next one is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when you haven't made a decision yet, but you are going in one direction. You have something that you are favoring. You would tend to perceive the information that is confirming your intention better than the ones that are contradicting it. A similar bias is attentional bias. That is the tendency to look at certain aspects of a decision with more importance than others. So you will be, for example, fixated on a layout of a house as opposed to the cracks in the wall. You wouldn't notice that it's in a wrong neighborhood. And then there's optimism bias. We as humans are optimistic people. We tend to believe that the risk of misfortune happening to us is lower than it is for others. And this could lead into assessing risks in a wrong way and actually getting into trouble, not being prepared for those risks and for those misfortunes. A similar one is false consensus effect. That is the tendency to estimate that people agree with you to a greater extent than they do in reality. This could lead to going in a meeting and assuming that you would have support, only to find out that reality is something different. Functional fixedness means the missing ability to see beyond the current function of a product or even a person. For example, washing machines are used to wash clothes, but people in Africa have used it to clean their produce, their vegetables, because when they are clean, they are more sellable on the markets. Similarly, if a person, let's say, is working today as a receptionist, people would tend to believe that this person doesn't have potential in other areas, maybe doesn't have sales potential or leadership potential, while in reality it could easily be. And then my favorite is misinformation effect. That is the tendency to change our perception of an earlier event after talking to people. There was, let's say you go to a concert with your friends and you think after the fact that the concert actually sucked, the band didn't play very well. But after talking to your friends, they tell you how much they enjoyed it. So you would change your opinion and you would say that the band was actually okay. That is problematic because there's a benefit in having multiple people look at the same situation, and there's a benefit of observations. So it's a very good idea to make note of what you experience so that it doesn't get changed after the fact. So how do you avoid making those bad decisions? I would argue that it's not possible to avoid mental biases. It's only possible to acknowledge having a bias and then correcting your thinking. Always look at objective criteria. Always have a systematic decision making, and always ask yourself, am I making an objective decision here? Am I looking at all the options and all the aspects? Am I representing my own opinion here? And if you do so, you will be less likely to fall into these cognitive biases and you will make a better decision. I hope you liked this video. If you did, there's a good chance you will like this one or this one. If you do so, please give us a like. I thank you for joining, and I will see you in the next one.